Welcome back, everybody, to the Energy Tips 18 for the week, April 27th till March 3rd. My name is Jona Bryndis. I'm your energy coach and energy healer with the weekly energy tips for energetically sensitives, empaths, and truth seekers. Yes, we are entering another development here in this next week. So, guys, brace yourself. Okay, so there's not going to be a lot of relief. There will be sort of a fake relief coming in, and this is something we'll talk about in the energy forecast for May 2020 here tonight in the Sacred Self-Healing community. Things are still speeding up, and as we are recognizing that there are a lot of things that are not really in our control anymore, since the control has already been taken away from us, we're feeling increasingly motivation-less, stuck, or powerless. So this is the part here that I want to illuminate with you in these energy tips today, namely how we can return to wholeness, how we can return to our own integrity and no longer feel powerless. In the truth talk that we just had right now, talking about how to regain the trust in self, I've illuminated the aspects of externalizing your power, and here I want to go a little deeper into your inner powers versus making yourself depend on outer powers, externalizing your powers. All right, and for that we need, of course, a very detailed discernment, one that has to do with what our truth from within tells us, our internal truth, and that can only come through our reality awareness. All right, and reality awareness always comes through taking an inventory, through reflecting, through gathering new info and putting it together in a different way. This is then what helps us to feel more competent, that we can see the situation in a more discerned way, and it leads us to those duh moments. I talked about the common sense and the truth talk, and I don't like the English word because common sense always feels like common, like as in like what everybody else thinks, but it's really more the sense, the duh sense in us, that needs to kick back in to feel motivated, to see opportunity where I saw restriction before, and to also understand that truth has a lot to do with sustainability. When we can have the greatest ideas and the greatest goals, if they're not realistic, or if they create unrealistic expectations of some sort, then we will never feel fulfilled. If they're not based on our freedom to choose, our ability to really see what is truly fulfilling for us, what truly makes us happy, it's really hard to make decisions. So this is where we all get stuck right now, because our compass needle is kind of confused. All right, so all we really need to do now, and this will be sort of the theme for all May, is to go into correction, to reprioritize, right, and to find this power of choice again, that resides in us, to recognize that we have a choice. So I want to go through the fundamentals of power of choice with you here in those energy tips, and then break it down to all these different layers, how you can better recognize the choices that you have, because that's the only way how you can learn to trust in yourself again. All right, and with it, of course, and this always swings in with everything, with your present, with your past, and with your future, the vision of yourself, how you see yourself. And then we'll learn that health, motivation, energy, that it all comes from the same place within us, and that is wholeness. Just a quick reminder here, health is defined through wholeness, and healing is basically making things whole again, what was previously fragmented or split up, to glue it back together, to mend it, to unify it. And this then allows us to tap into this overall, say, guide or power in us, that's even linked to more than just ourselves, that the higher power that expresses through us, which is then ultimately what allows us to come up with higher vibratory solutions, which teaches us that, there are some things that we cannot control. It teaches us serenity, and it teaches us surrender, to the higher power within ourselves. So whenever we get stuck, guys, we get stuck in thinking that whatever it is that we're doing is a higher power, while it's actually our lower power, our ego power. All right, so let's see how we can untangle this here for you and better deal with these rapid changes, because this is not going to change here anytime soon, guys. I'm seeing us going through this situation for another 11 months. Now we'll have ins and outs. We'll have, there'll come a little bit of relief here now until probably July, and then it's going to get more and more restricted again. So by November, I see us in an even more restricted situation, okay, where you can use this time right now as a training phase to get yourself out of your passivity, to get yourself out of this waiting, okay? So don't, think it's all just your fault, all right? It's not. There's so many powers, outer powers at play right now, that the only way you can wiggle your way through this, guys, is to actually experience and train how to better connect with your inner higher power. All right, and for that we always need to start with admitting that things can change and that we came here to deal with it. We are going to survive our lives. All right, this is not the priority. Our goal here, our purpose in life, is to find the highest expression of who we can be. And so dealing with it doesn't just mean to get to tomorrow. It means to feel whole and feel connected with my own integrity at all times. And this is, where all the true self-talk comes from. How can we prioritize the way we see ourselves and the way we see our conditions and the way we see our options and the way we see our, outlook here on the future, based on what is true to us, based on what we truly want, based on what we can truly control, based on our true abilities. So if we look at the collective here, we'll see that there's more and more revelations. Brace yourself for a lot of new studies coming out and polarizations. Okay, so one faction will accuse the other faction. They'll all try to distract from the fact that they really don't know what they're doing. Okay, so there'll be studies showing that the death rate is actually not higher than normal, and that the fact that we are going through this novelty situation hasn't really changed anything, and that the measures that were taken, such as the lockdown and so forth, that they were actually unnecessary, and that will then lead to those who have, propagated this as sort of the big solution and the big rescue, to defend that. So you'll observe a lot of gaslighting here, a lot of sort of defending your own opinion, your own decisions of the past, and that will lead to even more confusion in you. All right. So my tip for you, as far as the collective energies that keep hitting us, is stay away from them. Okay. If you have a scientific mind, if you want to know more about, the facts of all this corona situation, then read the studies. Don't listen to the political factions. All right, that you can see it, a whole different view there. You can sidestep all the fear cloud, and deal with the reality of something like a novelty virus hitting the global population, and see it a bit more calm, a bit more objective. All right, a lot of what gets us into this locked in place where we feel powerless and motivationless is our fear cloud, is all the assumptions that we have, these conclusions that our ego mind goes to. And what is the conclusion, of a pandemic that your ego draws? It's like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. All right, and this is here the overall sort of illusion of the situation. This is not going to happen. Okay, so what you're going to have to work with, is basically the own your own gaslighting. Okay, your ego mind's gaslighting that happens with you, where it becomes really difficult for you to see the reality. Now, if you have comorbid conditions, as they call this in medicine, where you have some kind of, asthma maybe, or issues with your lungs already, or issues with your immune system, then the reality of that is that you need to focus and prioritize your physical health. But even if you don't have any pre-existing conditions, all right, if you're dealing with the fear of death, okay, then the only way to feel competent to counteract this is to actually go into physical connection and make sure that your body's in a good place. Okay, this is the same sense, for anything. You have to always make sure that you're in a good place to even deal with things. All right, if you're not in a good place, then you will feel helpless. Then you will feel like you can't handle things. All right, so make sure that you are truthful with yourself about your own habits, be it your physical, your emotional, your mental, how you process things. All right, and your thoughts about things and your beliefs and so forth. And only then, can you actually discern your situation. So the more you externalize, the more you numb yourself, the more you disconnect, the more susceptible you are to your own inner darkness and, of course, the outer darkness. So I feel like a broken record here, but the answer to everything is always to reconnect and start from scratch. And here you might feel a little bit resistance. What does start from scratch mean? That I have to go back to go and that it feels like regress? No. You exist on all these different layers, on the physical, on the emotional, on the mental, on the social, on the spiritual and energetic level at all times. These things are happening, this is part of your reality, okay? And they determine your perception. So, put them all together, okay? So you might have physical sensations at this time, you might have emotions that come in, you might have thoughts that come in, you might have issues or, just conditions, with friends, family, relationship, you might have spiritual, conflicts, or you might feel energetic bombardment. Okay, then do it that way, be honest with yourself and say, okay, this is this, this is this, this is this, and then put them all together. When it comes to you understanding the overall situation, okay, and when I say overall, I mean overall, like you with the conditions that are there, inner and outer, as well as the outer condition, sort of influencing you, and you want to wiggle your way through this. All right, you need to take an inventory of all of that. That's the only way to make a, sort of true choice. And if you are not doing that, if you are not looking at all these parts, then it will not feel true. And then your ego will jump in and create some kind of scenarios why you can't do this and why you can't do this. And it will justify all of this, all right? So that's the part here that's really in your way. It's the part that externalizes decisions, that doesn't want to take responsibility for things, that doesn't want to look at things. So in order to sidestep your fear cloud, like this mental overlay of like, I can't do anything because, I might not even survive, or, I'm nobody knows where this is going or whatever, which externalizes all your power. Okay, you gotta step into it and reconnect with yourself. All right. So let's look at these little and big choices in your life, how you can discern them better, because that's something I noticed is even with those of you who are really well trained in discerning energies and so forth, you sometimes lose the connection to what truly matters. Which choices matter, guys? I tell you which choices matter. The only choices that matter are the ones that empower yourself. And if you got a grip on how you can prioritize those choices that empower you, then you can go and bring this on the outside and share this with others. And then you can even turn this into like a multiplying effect by sharing your synergy and by, doing things that empower others. But before you can even think about that, you're going to have to really get a grip on your own choices. So it's the everyday choices, and you all have this common sense. You all have that spiritual instinct, okay, that tells you sort of that sends these signals to you, either in form of your physical, emotional, or mental, or spiritual, or energetic impulses. So it's a little different, weighed differently for each of you, but you all have that instinct. And the one thing that holds you back from it is the big sort of fear of making a mistake, or the fear of a consequence, or the fear of not. Some of you get caught in the fear of not seeing something, and then you focus on not seeing something. This isn't going to help you. This is just going to increase your fragmentation, and it's going to make you feel more powerless. Liars don't heal. That's a quote from Carolyn Miss, and I love it, because it's really this internal contradiction, this internal moral crisis that we have with our own lack of integrity that leads to feeling powerless. If you know who you are, what you want, how you want it, what you need, and obviously also, in congruence with your condition and the people around you and so forth, and you follow your inner roadmap, that inner integrity, you don't have a problem with that. You can heal. You can heal anything. Remember, everything is just energy. Everything can transform. But you have to be willing to see it the way it is, with no fears, with no justifications, with, not numbing yourself from it or hiding from it or whatever. That cuts off your choices, guys. So in essence, a choice is something that you can really only see. And of course, the more, honest and truthful the more real you become, the more choices you will see, right? Is something that, if you actually listen to your common sense, to your spiritual instinct, to your heart mind, because your body, your mind, your heart, your energy, they know when you're lying, they know when you're not truthful to yourself. So just listen to this, okay? How can you feel competent? How can you form competence through going into more wholeness, into more integrity? First of all, always double check on your focus. That's the main thing where I see you guys getting tangled up. What am I even focusing on? Am I focusing on lack? Am I focusing on what I don't have? Or am I focusing on that I'm missing out on something? That's one group of things that people can sort of get misled within themselves. Am I focusing on my fears? Am I focusing on, sort of what I can't change, where I am indeed actually powerless, what I cannot control? That's the other group where a lot of you get tangled up. Okay, you just focus on things that you can't change. So set them aside, guys. You can't change what you can't change. And then, don't focus on the things that you can't see. Right? You can't know what you can't see. And to try to see with the same tool that cannot see is redundant. You're not ever going to see what you want to see if you use the same eyes. Okay, so the only way to really change what you see are these other steps that are coming now, and that is take an honest inventory. What are my true feelings? Recognize your polarities. Recognize your inner contradictions. And admit to yourself the true thoughts, even those that are tormenting you. And how are your actions and the way you bring this in the outside, how are they congruent with this? Are they congruent with what you truly feel and what you truly want? A lot of people get tangled up there. They feel one thing, they want one thing, and they do another thing. Number 3, if you notice that you get off course, then look at the priorities. Look at what you have been prioritizing and how, that affects your choices, right? And then change, reprioritize, all right? Make these things aware to you, all right? And go into the self-responsibility. You know, oh yeah, I've been focusing on hoarding. What does hoarding energize? Hoarding energizes lack. And no wonder I'm experiencing lack. Okay, it's just one example. Then number 4, the discernment of that. You know, and here, you know, this is a mixture of true or truthful, of being truthful with yourself, being integrous with yourself, and being congruent. That allows you to discern this better. All right. And, you know, when you run into an issue with yourself here, the image that you have of yourself, well, then you're going to have to do a little more than, you know, just looking at your conditions and your approach. Then you have to look at, you know, your image and things like that, and these illusions of who you are, your false self and your shadow, and how your inner darkness grips into this, and how it can override, you know, all these other things that you've already been working on. Because a lot of you guys have worked on a lot of different things already, and you've transcended a lot of that, but you're still, you know, not really wanting to see where, you know, you basically get off course. And this is, for most of us, you know, things like our attachments, or things that we are afraid to lose, or things that we're afraid to face. But once you realize the power of discernment, then it becomes so much easier to just, you know, realign yourself to your true goals and your true purpose, and also to feel that. Number 5 is obviously, you know, the continued and sort of reset inner connection. Always go back into connecting with yourself on all these different levels. And when you do that, then you will find out that you have a plethora of choices. There's many, many different things that you can refocus, reprioritize, you know, energize and choose. You recognize how many choices you have. And that then helps you to overcome this sort of, like, say, overall greater fear of dying, you know, your ego's fear of dying. Recognize that that's just an illusion. It's really the culmination of your inner darkness. Okay? And the more you feed your inner darkness, your inner fear, the more susceptible you'll become to outer darkness, outer fear. So let's summarize the choices that we all have. Okay? We can choose to be integrous. We can choose to live an integrous life, to walk the talk, and to be true to ourselves. We all have this freedom, guys. That's the freedom of choice. The free will that we all have due to our consciousness. Nobody can take that away from us. To be integrous is a higher vibratory value, and that is not based on material. That cannot be taken away. That is not a havingness or a gettingness. That is a claiming, more of like an awareness process, making ourselves aware of the fact that we can choose to be integrous. We can also choose to grow and learn without pain. We can choose to not believe that growth or evolution has to do with suffering. Remember, pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. So learn that you can transmute every learning experience into something that supports your growth, that makes you expand, that empowers you. Find the lesson in everything. Number 3, you can choose to take risks. You can choose to commit yourself to something and say, this is what I'm doing. And I don't care if other people think I'm crazy, or, you know, if other people agree with this, or what other people think. You can choose to not look to all the outer stuff and choose not to look backwards. You can choose to look forward. You can choose to let go of your regrets of the past and of your fears of the future. Number 4, you can choose how you express yourself. You can choose how you bring yourself out into this world. You can choose your words. You can choose your deeds. You can even choose your thoughts. And as some of you have already learned, you can choose the energies that you put out there. Because a lot of us project things out that we are completely unaware of, that are based on our inner darkness, that then in return pull in more darkness. But we can choose this. We can choose if we see the world as a hostile place and ourselves as a victim, or if we see ourselves as the one that creates our own reality. We can choose whether we, feel entitled to happiness, or whether we see ourselves self-responsible for happiness and fulfillment in our lives. We can choose to be a victim or a thriver. You can choose to appreciate everything that you experience and thank your true self for the guidance, or to avoid and hide or numb yourself. And last but not least, guys, you can choose what you let control you. You can choose to surrender the things that you cannot control. You can even choose to letting your inner higher power, we call this grace, provide you with the necessary guidance. You can choose to recognize the limitations of your ego mind and say, you know what, with my ego mind, I've reached a limit here. This isn't going to help me. Okay, I'm going to have to let my mind be. This is not all that I am. And surrender the answer to your questions or the guidance that you cannot feel yet to the higher abilities in you, the higher power in you. Those are just, a few examples on how you can train yourself to recognize the choices that you have. The choices that can lead you to wholeness, that can lead you to integrity, that can lead you to more truth. And then you will no longer feel a victim of outer circumstances or outer bombardment there will always be parts of that. But you can choose to not let this define you. You can choose your reality in this way, guys. And this can be very, very motivating. So let's look at the next week here and how the energies of next week, how this relates and what we can find there. Okay, where we can find wholeness instead of fragmentation, where we can find motivation instead of externalization and passivity and powerlessness. The chakras mostly triggered here in this next week will be third and fourth. That is always the battle between the ego self and the true self, the force over power, but I want to have, and I want to get, and the longing, and I want it now, versus the, opening myself up to standing in my center and being calm and, really trusting instead of trying to force something or trying to push into something, all right, which then leads to this unsustainability. And unsustainability, I would strongly recommend you guys to use this energy word sustainability here to redefine your sense for truth. Anytime something is not sustainable means it's not true. And if something is true, it always is sustainable. It will always provide you with everything that you need. It gets you, it zooms you into this upward spiral. It will actually make more of your inner abilities accessible to you, and then as a consequence of you feeling more confident, more competent, and more trust in yourself, then the outside world will also respond to this and provide you with more options, right? So the battle, you're going to get pulled into the battle next week. Then your fifth chakra. And this has been going on for a while, and this will continue to go on, as well as the sixth chakra. The fifth chakra is the expression. Remember, like how we bring things in the out, the congruence and the integrity with which we express ourselves, with which we communicate ourselves. But in conjunction with our sixth chakra, our third eye, our ability to see the larger context, to look sort of beyond just the outer projections. Okay, it's also about the ability to discern truth. And then at the same time, and this will continue here for probably another 6 months, guys, the strong input here from your seventh chakra, from your crown, the connection with cosmic energies, the larger picture. And all this is constantly vacillating, right? The internal view and the external view. And what this does to you is that it helps you to triangulate who you truly are, what you truly want, and what your choices truly are. And you have to accept that as the condition right now. Okay, in the collective, all that will do, on this sort of lower conscious level, is to bring forward all the secrets and all the lies and more lies, and there'll be corrections that need to be made, and then they're going to manipulate the truth, and then they're going to say, oh, I said this in the first place. And it's just so much overlay right now, guys, that don't even try to make sense. Also, the resulting etheric overlay that is there is a total yin-yang confusion right now, okay? It keeps on going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and the same in you as well. The way I see this right now, if I look at the elementals, because I often use the elementals for me to get a better, sense for the energies, I'm seeing explosive fire with water and air. That's like, boo, that's like explosive, really. And the overall condition is therefore, increasingly polarizing, increasingly fragmenting, and that's why people continue to feel powerless and frustrated. Okay, and I'm starting to see, that the population is going to demand truth. They're going to really demand things from their governments. Will see this coming here, and they won't have the answers, guys. So the way to navigate through all this is through self-competence and trust in ourselves, and knowing what this return to inner wholeness, what this can do for us, namely see that we have a lot more choices than we think we have. Physically, obviously, this kind of correction that I strongly recommend to all of you is to recognize that, whether there's a virus or not, whether there's just other viruses and bacteria that are always there or not, your physical immune system is what is designated to deal with this, all right? And if you don't trust in your immune system, then you have to do something to support it, okay? So my tip for you here, and this will continue to say this, is to really go connect with your body more, get your juices flowing, listen to your physical signals, and go into this integrative understanding of your health. Okay, so physical health is not just the way it looks, it's also the way it feels. So your emotions and your thoughts, and sometimes also your spiritual and etheric health, have a lot to do with your physical immune system. Okay, so you will find a lot more, or you'll find your physical immune system to be a lot stronger if you actually integrate all of this and don't see yourself so fragmented. Okay, see yourself as a whole, and that's holistic or integrative medicine, if you're looking for answers there. Emotionally, it's the same with all the other aspects. So I will sound like I'm repeating, but I just want to break this down for you. In order to get into a more truthful, more congruent expression of yourself, you really have to look at how you even process emotions. And if you keep sort of marinating in your own thing, and you get so focused on, I'm feeling this and I'm feeling that, then you're not seeing the bigger picture here of of who you truly are and how you truly feel. All right, so you need to learn how to express that better, to increase your vocabulary, because if you get stuck in, oh, I'm feeling bad, I'm feeling good, I mean, that's binary. There's so much more. We have 34,000 emotions, guys. Who would have thought? Most of us use 5 descriptors. Increase your vocabulary, and then you'll see that you are much more diverse emotionally. And that will also allow you to discern better. And that will then help you to integrate your true feelings and not get caught in your emotions and be erratic and, let your emotions run everything, including your body. Same with your thoughts, right? There's this knowing, and then there is knowledge, and the ego mind is focused on knowledge. Okay, it's focused on data, things that it has experienced before. That's the only reference point that your mind has. It really doesn't have a reference for the future. It can only say based on the past, just like how they justified the decisions for the lockdown based on the data that we have from Italy. We're going to have to immediately shut everything down, because if we don't, then we're all going to die. But now you'll find out that this data was limited, and that this had to do with other things, and that it wasn't even representative. Okay, and that the overall death rate is nowhere near, not even close. Okay, and that there's many, many other factors that weren't put into account, that it wasn't even scientific what it was based on, what most of these decisions were based on. And that, maybe the lockdown has created so much fear in people, because they're finding out that a lot of people are dying of strokes and heart attacks right now, that they died as a consequence of the lockdown and not as a consequence of the actual virus infection, even if they tested positive. So don't get caught into this narrow-mindedness, just seeing things from one perspective. You never know. Tomorrow that perspective might be a different one. All right? And that's, this shift from linear to non-linear, stay open and feel into your heart, and, fusion your mind and your heart, and go into this true common sense. All right, I don't have a good word for this yet. I'm working on this. All right, so not common sense, I've mentioned before, but it's this heart mind in you. This creates a new sense inside of ourselves, and it has something to do with our mental energies. But what it really leads to is, to discernment. Okay, so the integration of discernment. Socially, in our relationships, what can I say? A lot of you guys have issues right now because you're feeling trapped with people, or you're feeling trapped not getting to people, okay? And this can create, a sense of restriction in both ways, okay? So we all need higher connectivity levels right now, but the connectivity isn't so much in just the physical sense, all right? In times where we cannot physically connect, we have to find other ways to connect. All right, internal and external ways. And, my tip for you is, if you have issues in your relationship, is to really focus on communicating things more differentiatedly, okay? Don't allow people to go into this. I mean, it's normal to do this, natural to go and jump to conclusions, but see through this, Remember how I said, the fear cloud, when we get so caught in our first initial emotional reaction, see through this, and your loved ones and the people that you're with, find ways to help them to do this as well, be it with your kids or with your partner or with your family. This will lead to higher levels of integrity within yourself, and then your communication becomes more integrous, and there's less misunderstandings, less assumptions. Spiritually, this is all about recognizing our higher power, guys. And I as an energy healer, for me, this is a wonderful time in that way, because it really demonstrates it to us. All right, what this spiritual integration and spiritual pragmatism, how important it really is. It's not enough to just have this sort of conceptual understanding of spirituality. That's an active choice. I don't want to say doingness, because it's an integrated doingness. All right, it's a becoming. All right, that's the when doing and being, when this goes together, then it's a becoming. All right, and this is really the task that we are all bestowed with right now, is to focus on becoming. All right, and for many of us, it means that we have to really tune into our beingness more, and as we do this, we will begin to get a better sense for our inner higher power and for grace, and how to utilize this on a day-to-day basis. Many of you, I know, already do this. I am breathing, or surrendering, having little prayers or little invocations that help you, to let go and to surrender all these inner fragments and contradictions that you have to your higher power, which will then send, these higher vibratory solutions to you in return. And energetically, obviously, the topic here is integration on all levels, but especially mentally right now. So it's probably no surprise to you that we have the Grace Mental Heart Fusion Marathon coming up here over this next weekend, because this is really what we need the most right now. These 18 inches between our mind, our brain, and our heart, okay, the longest journey of our lives, okay, to really get to this common sense, all right, this type of feeling in us that connects us with our essence, that connects us with our truth, and that allows us to see that we have the choice. You all have the power of choice, guys. Go and execute it. Love you guys. See you next week. Bye-bye.